If you have a travel bucket list, you undoubtedly want to see prominent national parks, iconic wonders of the world, large cities, and significant landmarks. But what about staying away from over-tourism and taking undiscovered routes? Barcelona, Cartagena, Times Square, and Machu Picchu are just a few of the places we visited. Over-tourism is a problem in some areas, which makes the trip difficult. Here are a few fewer visited locations around the globe. Number 10. Portugal's Alentejo villages. Portugal appeals to us as a diverse and reasonably priced tourist destination. We experienced both quite touristy, Évora, and sparsely populated local areas in the Alentejo region. We won't go into depth about every location where we pulled over, but we will discuss the most and least visited medieval communities in the Alentejo. The region of Portugal's mid-south, which is closer to the border with Spain, is known as the Alentejo region. From Lisbon, we set out on our road adventure without a plan, traveling primarily east and north. When we arrived, we discovered that we were not the only ones who had been guided in this direction. We had heard that Évora was attractive. We wanted to adore Évora, but we felt crowded by the tour groups, large groups, and tours that were present. We plotted a path to another area suggested by one of my contacts in business using a Lonely Planet guide. The village, called Serpa, was lovely, wonderfully serene, and calm. The appeal of this village came from the fact that it was far too small to accommodate tour groups. Number 9. Estonia's Pirita Beach in Tallinn. We were aware that Tallinn, Estonia was a small capital city in comparison to other European capitals, and it was here that we honed our knowledge of Tallinn's cafes and prime photo locations. We slept at Euphoria Hostel, which was a nice choice for some peace 2 blocks outside of the town center. We discovered that Tallinn is the kind of port city where cruise ships will discharge guests for the day. Therefore, tourists from all over Europe and the rest of the world are constantly crowded into the Tallinn town center. Our secret is that there are simple ways to leave Tallinn's old town and see more of the Metro Tallinn area if you follow the advice of locals. Our initial choice was to go to Kadriorgu Park and subsequently Pirita Beach, where we only encountered approximately 10 other people throughout our entire visit. Number 8. Ireland's Burren National Park. To put it frankly, the day we visited the Burren National Park in Western Ireland, we only encountered approximately 15 other tourists. We made a halt at this national park while traveling along the Wild Atlantic Way near Corofin, County Clare. We had to travel quite a distance to get there, so it was obvious that there were no tour groups, big crowds of people, and to be honest, not much of anything. The Burren is known as the Badlands of Western Ireland since there are not many trees and the region is dominated by rocky ridges. We passed a family of 5, another couple, and a few other hikers during our 2-hour hike. We went the long path. The majority of our images either feature just the 2 of us or the surrounding environment, which features vistas of rural Ireland's patchwork or farms in the background. Bring your food and water. There were no sounds, few signs, and no merchants selling anything. Number 7. Taipei, Taiwan's Yangmingshan National Park. It is becoming more and more popular with tourists from Western nations across the oceans, as well as those from other parts of Taiwan and East Asia. Taipei is a bustling city with great cafe culture. The Chiang Kai-shek Memorial Hall, the National Museum, the Sun Yat-sen Memorial, and Shai Lin Night Market are Taipei's top tourist destinations. On most nights between 6 and 10 o'clock, these attractions are practically packed to the gills with visitors. Yet, if you grab your travel camera and board a bus to the city's outskirts with Yangmingshan National Park as your destination, you should be ready to go for some time without meeting anyone in a group. We accidentally went to the wrong visitor center when we first arrived in Yangmingshan National Park, ending up in a garden full of senior citizens and families. Number 6. The Dutch city of Rotterdam. The majority of tourists taking the Eurotrip would include Amsterdam on their itineraries, but what about Rotterdam, a Dutch architectural hotspot? Even though it is the second largest city in the Netherlands, we discovered that the majority of individuals living outside of Europe have never even heard of it. You can either A. leave downtown Amsterdam and visit the more residential neighborhoods, or B. take a short ride to Rotterdam if you wish to avoid the sea of tourists that can be found there. For the record, we did both, but we also discovered that after visiting another city, we learned more about the Netherlands as a whole. Did we fully avoid tourists? No, we do have some solitude, peace, and culture. Number 5. Colombia's Santa Fe de Antioquia. You've probably heard of Medellin if you've looked for travel locations in Colombia. For further information, see the website. We've now lived in Medellin for a month on 2 separate occasions, either half of us or both. Twice riding the bus to Guate for a day excursion, hiking several trails outside the city to see waterfalls, and hanging out in various areas. On our most recent stay in Medellin, we had to figure out how to travel to Santa Fe de Antioquia, a place more popular with native Colombians than with tourists in the immediate Antioquia region. Number 4. Valladolid, Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Mexico City and the Yucatan Peninsula are the two most visited regions in the country. What we did to avoid crowds in Valladolid is described here. This lovely town won't be a secret for very long. Our buddy and globe traveler Daniel Hertzberg gave us the suggestion to include Valladolid in our schedule for the Yucatan and Tulum trip, and we are so delighted he did. The town center, market, and cathedral in Valladolid are like a time machine that transports you back to a simpler era. We took strolls through this small city at night, observing the activity on the streets, and we gazed at the vintage vehicles and pastel-colored walls during the day. It's almost too convenient to be true since Valladolid is only 2 hours by bus from Cancun, but because it's inland and doesn't have a beach, many tourists still avoid it to spend as much time as possible on the Mayan Riviera, the beaches dotting the coast from Tulum to Cancun. Number 3. The Vinohrady area of Prague, Czech Republic. Prague is fantastic for a variety of reasons, including the fact that it's one of the greatest places for remote work. Dan brought me to the Vinohrady neighborhood for my first visit to Prague, which is about a 25-minute walk from the old town, home to all the sites, bridges, museums, and famous photo spots. You may skip the tour groups and see Prague like a native of Vinohrady. Wide residential streets and several thoroughfares with eateries, cafes, and bars make up the Vinohrady area. The parks are lovely and have good mass transit accessibility. Number 2. Argentina's Las Sierras. Only those who have visited Cordoba, Argentina's second-largest city, are you finding a trend here, after the metropolis of Buenos Aires, have heard of this province. Once you leave the city boundaries and begin to travel for 30 to 60 minutes, you will begin to see the low, undulating mountains known as Las Sierras. In addition to visiting in April, which is the off-season, Argentina's autumn, we also visited less well-known mountainous regions. Rent a car from the Cordoba airport and start driving if you want to avoid tourists. Oh, and make sure your daytime running lights are on because it's against the law to drive in Argentina without them. We should know because we received 2 tickets. Number 1. Tenerife, Canary Islands, El Teide National Park, Spain. Continue reading past our title because El Teide National Park, the highest point in Spain, which is accurate because the Canary Islands are part of Spain, attracts a large number of visitors each day and each year. The huge desert and volcanic scenery were not something we experienced on a tour, rather we traveled there by public bus from La Orotava, where we had been sleeping at 9 co-living for a few weeks and got off at the terminal station of the tourist center. From there, it was obvious that the majority of tourists were making their way to the gondola ride to see some vistas and arrive at the summit's base. We were against that, so this is the end of this interesting video. Do you like it? Openly submit your feedback in our comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.